Welcome back everybody to another in my aviation history series, and this is going to be episode 45 on my history of the RCAF. Now today we're going to be looking at 442 Squadron, from its formation in World War II as a home unit to today as one of the RCAF's dedicated search and rescue units. 442 Squadron has been in almost continuous operation since it was first formed. Now, before we get too far into this, as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. Now, as well, quickly, before we jump into the meat of this video, I just want to say thank you to everybody who is out there watching these. If you do enjoy what you're watching and you haven't yet, down below, please hit that subscribe button, and the notification bell will let you know when I release new content. All of that helps the algorithm push this content out to more people who might enjoy it. Now, I'm not going to keep you for too much longer, so let's just jump right into this video and take a look at the history of 442 Squadron. 442 Squadron was initially formed on January 2nd of 1942 as No. 14 Fighter Squadron based at Sea Island, today's Vancouver Airport. It was assigned the squadron code YA and received their first aircraft, P-40s, that same month. In March of 1943, the unit began to come up to Alaska to help the USAAF in their fight against the Japanese. They were located at Amchitka Island, and unlike 441 Squadron, they flew their own aircraft rather than borrow USAAF stock. On April 18th, the unit flew their first combat mission with raids on Japanese assets on Kiska. For the next 8 months, 14 Squadron continued to fly combat and patrol missions in and around the Aleutian Islands. In January of 1944, 14 Squadron was one of 6 home units to relocate to Europe to help bolster forces there in the lead-up to the invasion of Nazi-occupied France. The unit left their aircraft on the west coast, made their way across Canada by train, and boarded ships in Halifax to take them to Europe. They were on site at their new base, RAF Digby, by February 8th of 1944. Here, they were renumbered 442 Squadron, assigned the squadron code Y2, and received their first aircraft, Spitfire Mark 5Bs, that same month. They used these Mark 5s to train before converting to the Mark 9B in March. On March 18th, the unit moved to Holmesley South, and on March 28th, they flew their first operational mission when 12 aircraft flew escort to USAAF B-17s during a bombing mission to northern France. Now, the next 2 months was a flurry of activity with the unit moving to West Hapnet on April 1st, and then they were very quickly moved again on April 23rd to Fundington. The last week of April was spent at an armament camp, and then they set up shop at RAF Ford on May 15th. Now, on D-Day, June 6th of 1944, the unit had aircraft up, patrolling the landing beaches, and it was a maximum effort day, although no kills were recorded and no losses were suffered. On June 15th, the unit relocated to the continent, moving to B3 at Sainte-Croix-sur-Mer, France. It was while based here, on June 22nd, that the unit recorded its first victory. 7 442 Squadron Spitfires encountered 8 enemy aircraft while returning from a fighter sweep, and 3 enemy aircraft were destroyed without any losses. Like many of the continental-based units, 442 Squadron moved from base to base as the front lines moved farther east in order to stay close to the action. Now, the bases they were located at are as follows. Now, following Sainte-Croix-sur-Mer, on July 15th of 1944, they moved to B4, Benay-sur-Mer. On August 8th of 1944, they moved to B18, Cristaux, France. September 1st of 1944, B24, Saint-André, France. September 2nd of 1944, B25, Hilière-l'Évêque, France. September 3rd, 1944, B44, Poix, France. September 7th of 1944, B56, Avere, Belgium. September 21st of 1944, B58, Le Caillou, Belgium. October 3rd of 44, B84, Rip, Netherlands. October 14th of 1944, B80, Volkel, Netherlands. And finally, December 6th of 1944 at B88, Hesch, Netherlands. Now, during September of 1944, while based at Avere, Belgium, the unit upgraded from the Spitfire Mark 9B to the Mark 9E, the only difference being the wing, with the E-wing being called the quote-unquote universal wing that allowed for a variation of wing armaments based on mission type and pilot preferences. Now, each E-wing could hold two 20mm cannons with two 50 caliber machine guns, or any variation of those two weapons. In March of 1945, the unit was brought back to the UK and located at Huntston and began to re-equip with the Mustang Mark IV, the British version of the P-51D. They took on the role of bomber escort. With the reduction of the German fighter ability, the RAF had moved to more daylight missions, and these still required some fighter escort, the same as the USAAF bombers needed. Now, following the same pattern as the USAAF fighters, as the Mustangs returned from escort missions, they would drop down to treetop level and use up any leftover ammo on ground targets, and the unit started to rack up some impressive victory numbers. On May 17th of 1945, the unit moved to Digby, and on July 15th, the unit moved to Molesworth. The unit's final operational mission was flown on May 9th, 1945, while based at Digby, fitting as that was the unit's first base when arriving in England. This is also considered the last fighter mission of World War II for any Allied force, as it took place after the surrender of the German forces. This final mission was a fighter escort for Allied forces that were landing on the Channel Islands in order to formally take these back from German control. 13 Mustangs took part in this mission, and while a couple were returned due to mechanical issues, there were no losses as well as no victories, and to be honest, none of the aircraft actually fired a single shot in anger during this mission. The unit then disbanded on August 7th of 1945 while based at Molesworth. During World War II, the unit flew 7,186 operational hours across 4,954 sorties. It was credited with 56 enemy aircraft destroyed, 5 probable, 25 damaged. It dropped 328 tons of bombs, credited with 91 rail cuts, 909 motor vehicles destroyed or damaged, 125 locomotives destroyed or damaged, and 194 trains destroyed or damaged. It suffered 16 aircraft lost, with 1 pilot killed, 9 presumed dead, 4 POWs, of whom 1 escaped, 1 wounded, and 1 proved safe. The unit's post-war life started on April 15th of 1946 when it was reformed as an auxiliary fighter unit at RCAF Station Sea Island, today's Vancouver International Airport, again fitting as that was where number 14 Squadron, the ancestor of 442 Squadron, was also formed. It was assigned the squadron code BU, and it received its first aircraft, Harvard Mark IIs, in July, and flying began in earnest. In April of 1948, the unit received their first fighter aircraft, the Havilland Vampire. Now, in an odd twist, the unit received Mustangs in November of 1950 and flew all 3 types for a short period of time. In August of 1956, 442 Squadron received the Sabre Mark V, and by October, both the Vampire and the Mustangs were gone, leaving the unit with just the Sabres and Harvards. Also around this time, the unit also transitioned to the squadron code SL. Now, in October of 1958, with a drawdown of the auxiliary fighter units, 442 Squadron transitioned to the light transport and emergency rescue role. This change meant that in August of 1958, the Sabres moved on, and in September, the Harvards left. The first transport aircraft, the Beechcraft Expediter Mark III, arrived in October. Now, in October of 1960, the Expediters were augmented by the DHC-3 Otter. Now, with a general drawdown in auxiliary units, 442 Squadron was also wrapped up in that and was stood down on April 1st of 1964. In 1968, with the reorganization of units after the unification of the Canadian Forces, 442 Squadron was stood back up on July 8th as a communications and rescue squadron at CFB Comox with personnel and equipment from the stood-down 121 Composite Unit. It was equipped with a mixed fleet of CH-113 Labradors, CC-129 Dakotas, Albatrosses, and CH-125 Workhorse helicopters. Now, over the years, 442 Squadron has flown a variety of aircraft, and not unlike other RCAF squadrons, finding details on 442's modern history is not very easy. Now, the aircraft that 442 Squadron is most known for in the SAR role is the DHC-5 Buffalo, known as the CC-115 in RCAF use. Its stall capabilities made it an invaluable aircraft in the mountains and valleys of the West Coast. 442 Squadron began using the CC-115 around 1975, and they flew their last mission with the type in 2022. The CH-113 was also another long-time airframe with 442, that being the Labrador helicopter, with the first one entering service with the formation of the unit, and the last mission with the type not flown until 2004. Today, 442 Squadron continues as a primary search and rescue unit on the west coast of Canada. And with the retirement of the CH-113, the unit adopted the CH-149 Cormorant in 2004 as its primary helicopter for search and rescue duties, and is actually still going strong. And to be honest, it's actually due for a full mid-life upgrade coming in the next couple of years. Now, the CC-115 Buffalo is also one of the primary aircraft that was known, and with its retirement in 2022, the new fixed-wing airframe, the CC-295, is still a little delayed. It's due to enter operational service either later this year, 2025, or early next year in 2026, and that has meant that 442 Squadron has not had a fixed-wing aircraft to use on the west coast of Canada, and as such, a number of CC-130s from other units in Canada, mainly from 424 in Winnipeg, has been used to bolster their use on the west coast. Now, all of that being said, with the helicopters getting a midlife upgrade and new fixed-wing aircraft coming online, as well as the fact that search and rescue duties are not going away anytime soon, it is always something that Canada will need to have capabilities for. I don't see 442 Squadron going anywhere anytime soon, and it will continue to live this legacy that it's had since the World War II days. Now, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you all next time.